to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. It's Power Talk Friday. I am very happy to let you know that I have Peter Lang with me. Peter is the Designer CPA. You guys all know who Peter is, and you are doing your happy dance. I know you are. I have to say, becoming friends with Peter over the last year and a half after getting to know him, first with interviewing him on the first episode that he was on the podcast, which was episode 349. And then we worked together on our book, A Well-Designed Business, a Power Talk Friday Experts, which Peter was chapter 2, okay? And that's because when I was setting up all of the chapters and I had all of these amazing coaches and I had all of them with their superpowers and all of them had submitted to me their chapters, then it was like a chess game. And I was like, where do they go? What's the flow? And I settled on first things first. You have to know who you are, what you do, and who you do it for. So that was Nicole Heimer, defining your brand. But second thing is, you got to know how to manage your money, because there's no point in taking a step further if you don't know how to do that. So Peter was the second chapter in the book. It's called Find the Best Accountant for Your Firm. It starts on page 30. And if this is all news to you, then let me just tell you, Peter is the Designer CPA. He is a CPA who works exclusively with design professionals just like you. Okay, this was one of the very first things that attracted me to him, because I know that it's very hard for us, and I'm in this boat with you guys, as creatives, to really lock down the finance side. And I could tell from the very first conversation I had with Peter that he genuinely likes working with people like us. I mean, it's crazy. It's a numbers person who isn't exasperated by us. And I just think that's awesome, because that's not so easy. And he genuinely has this really true desire to help creatives and not to do it in a way that embarrasses us or diminishes us. And his goal is to help us to be that confident partner that really, together with him or another CPA, but his superpower is doing it, is that confident partner in the financial side of your business. So he's based in Rhode Island, but he works remotely with designers all over the U.S. So welcome to your second appearance on A Well-Designed Business, Peter.
Hi, LuAnn. How are you? It's so nice to be back.
I'm great, and I'm smiling because I'm looking forward to this conversation. And because you have this really cool thing coming out that I want to talk about, and you and I are going to be doing Power Talk Friday in High Point in October 2019 together, and I want to talk about that too. But I haven't had a chance to talk to you since we were together at LuAnn Live in March 2019. What did you think of the event? I mean, it was like a whirlwind. What did you think of it?
Okay, well, so I agreed to write the chapter, and then, of course, I wanted to be there for the release, and I thought to myself on the way down, I'm on the plane, and I'm like, okay, so I'm going to, she'll tell me when I'm going to speak, and then I'll go back to my room and watch TV, and I won't get really anything out of it. But I sat in the back the whole time and wrote more notes than if I went to a conference for CPAs.
Really? I didn't know that. Now, I knew that you were in the room the whole time, but what types of things were you learning there, Peter?
Well, it's funny. I have Fred Burns. I realized that what I had for a profile on myself was weak. So right off the bat there, I mean, branding is obviously so important. But then we talk about Instagram stories, which I was like, what's an Instagram story? and email marketing and all this stuff that we need to know as business owners. It was so awesome, so exhausting, but so
Yeah.
awesome that I slept for like 16 hours when I got home straight. But you know what? I had this list and I was like, okay, I'm gonna tackle this list slowly.
Well, I'm really actually, this is news to me, and I'm actually really, really happy to know that you did get so much out of it because, I say it to a lot of people when I meet them and they find out that I do a podcast and they say, what is the podcast about? And I tell them and I say, but, honestly, substitute whatever you do for a living for interior designer because business is business, right? We all need to your point, you need to have a great website presence. You need to know your brand, who you talk to, what you do for them, and how you do it. These are essential elements to running a well-designed business, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so funny because so many people said to me that the same thing. They went home exhausted. Meanwhile, 48 hours later, I was on an 8 a.m. flight to Boston to do a panel discussion in Boston. And 48 hours from that, I was on my way to High Point to do the keynote in the theater.
Yeah, and when I saw that on Instagram, I was still laying in bed, and I thought, man, that's tiring just seeing that.
But what's funny is of course my whole life I've known that I'm extroverted. Let's be serious. That's kind of obvious. But it was in the experience of doing LuAnn Live and being on stage for 6 panel discussions, an hour and 20 minutes each one, 2 days in a row, plus the solo presentations at night that I was doing and everything else. Vin, my husband, he just kept looking at me going, are you okay? I'm like, I'm great. I'm great. I was like, I'm fine. It was insane. Like, I just get energy from people. And I just, and I did, the second night I stayed out till 2:00 in the morning and still had to get up. I did stay out late the second night. The first night I went up, I was like, you have 6 more panel discussions, sweetie. You need to lock it down. Go upstairs at 11 o'clock. I don't think I went to bed till 1 because I was so jacked up, but I did wind down. But I've said this a couple of times with other people that are on the show that were there. Didn't it feel like it was 200 people in a room, that it was really 20 people in a room?
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. And thank you, by the way, for pairing me up with Corey Damon Jenkins because I got so lucky.
He was great.
He's
right?
awesome.
He was such, he ended up being truly one of the highlights I really looked at it, my languages. I said to him, you are such a gift to all of us this weekend. He sat right there, dead center, full attention, taking part in the discussions, and not just on the stage with you, but throughout the whole thing, and sharing his perspectives and asking questions when he too was learning something. It was a gift to have him there, and then you two on stage telling the war stories. Whoa.
I'll never forget his face when I told the story about the woman who stole the payroll checks. But
do you know how many times I've told that story since then? You have to tell it to us now because I've probably messed up the details, but it's worth hearing. It was, the entire audience was just with their jaw on their lap.
Well, the funny thing was I started with the whole I'm not trying to worry anybody, but then I realized, maybe I did. But I told a story of the first time, one of the first jobs I had when I was an auditor, and they try to make it sound sexy, and they're like, this is an amazing investigation that we're doing. And I went to this jewelry manufacturer, and there was time cards, paper time cards in this room, windowless room all summer, looking at it. But long story short, what happened was no one was checking the work of one of the people in the accounting department, and she was in cahoots with a teller at a local branch. She set up 3 fake employees, and she'd go around and pass out checks. Well, eventually, when you do it for 2 years, eventually you get sick. And so she kept coming to work with pneumonia. And then finally they said, you can't physically come to work anymore. She ended up in the hospital. And the following week when the payroll checks went out, whoever did, when they got done, they went to their boss and they said, who are these 3 people? They don't work here. We've never heard of them before.
Oh, my God. I know.
Now, I've seen this before where they're already in Mexico, but she was still at home and she got arrested and was sent to jail. But
Isn't that
That's
amazing?
a good example of like, just because you have a great team doesn't mean you should stop paying attention.
No. And that was the huge lesson. And it was what was so awesome about the conversation between yourself and Corey Damon was that you both had stories like that. And I know I have said it to my one-on-one coaching clients. I've said it to my masterminds. I've said it on the show that Vin literally, I don't care how far removed he gets from the day-to-day operations. I don't care what his role becomes. He looks at the Window Works bank accounts every single morning and looks at every single credit card account every single morning, on top of all of the other checks and balances. But the point of the matter is I have talked with many business professionals, even outside our industry, and all the colleagues and all the experiences I had, but particularly inside the industry, where designers have said to me, oh my goodness, I just can't wait until I have enough of a team and enough of, income coming in that I don't have to be the one to sit down with the bookkeeper anymore. And I'm like, no. No, see, you're always that one. You're always that one, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Because you're the only one who really knows everything. And that was like Corey Damon's story. After you told that story, then he told the story how he had a bookkeeper that he loved, he trusted, he thought she was amazing. He didn't check everything she did. And 2 years after she left, he found out that he had been paying for her and her 3 kids or 2 kids' cell phones for years. Remember?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, I do now. Yep.
And then he got hot. Remember, he got hot. In retelling the story, he was like, and I'm going to tell you what, right? And now he said that he's the one. He travels all over the country on speaking engagements, on design projects all over New York, Detroit, New Jersey, everywhere. But that's part of his calendar that he reviews with his bookkeeper, right? Yep.
Absolutely.
And it never gets farmed out. It just doesn't, because you're the only one that knows everything. I mean, my husband is so, crazy about it. Rightfully so. I never want to, that's really my point. I know I can make fun that he's crazy, but it has saved us so much money over the years and caught so many mistakes over the years. But even like an invoice from Hunter Douglas or an invoice from a fabric company, Kravat, whoever it is, has to be approved by 3 people before that bill gets paid. 3 people have to look at it. The salesperson has to look at it. Yes, that's my client. That's a fabric that I ordered. Yes, and I needed 22 yards, not 58 yards, not 12 yards. I needed 22. Adriana has to look at it and verify that that's the price that is online for that product, and that's how many yards that we ordered. And then Vin has to look at it, and he has to be shown where that customer name lines up with that invoice. Like that's for a computer-generated invoice that probably, what would you say, 70 to 80% of our industry just pays without checking?
Oh, yeah. Well, right? that complex internal controls that you have has saved you probably, since you started your business, millions of dollars in mistakes.
That's right. It does. And the crazy thing is we'll still find mistakes. This is what gives you the juice to keep doing it, because you'll be like, we just last Saturday, he says to me, what's this? He is Saturday morning looking at the Amex. And he's like, what's this amount for $158.48? And I'm like, I have no idea. And here we are. We're like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm calling the number and we're doing 9,000 things. It turned out it was a legitimate. That one happened to be legitimate. But it's not like we don't go, it's 158. Whatever. Because like 3 weeks ago, we found one that wasn't. There was no tracking it back to anybody. Called Amex and it was like, oh, yeah, that's fraud. Oh, awesome. Crazy.
Yeah.
So that was very, it was organic that conversation happened that way, that you both had those war stories, but that was so powerful in the room. It was like you could hear a pin drop. People were like, wow. Yeah. So very cool. Very cool. All right. So here's the thing. You learned something at LuAnn Live too. This part you did share with me. You said to me that how many? 6, 8, 10 interior designers came up to you with a request over the course of the weekend, and designer after designer kept having a version of the exact same request. And then the light
Yes.
bulb went off on Peter Lang's head.
Yes. So I I used to teach high school and college while I still did taxes on the side. So I've always enjoyed teaching. But after the second day, well, it was throughout the whole time, but after the second day, there was a time period before we had our dinner and our
Yes.
party, and we were all hanging out in a lounge. And yeah, 6, 8 people came up to me and said, you explain things in such a way, you should really do a class and explain this stuff to us,
Yes.
this accounting and these financial statements and do it in the way that you normally do it with your clients so that we can finally learn, the right way to look at this stuff.
Right. Because that is the truth. And that's what really I loved about you from the first time I met you a year and a half ago, is that you genuinely do speak to us in a way that makes it relatable and understandable, as opposed to glossing over the terms and, oh, you don't need to know about that. And, well, I mean, we'll get to that later, and later never comes. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
actually do understand. Well, and what I know, and I want to share is, I remember you're telling us at LuAnn Live, is that when a designer wants to work with you, they have commitments that they have to make too. Like, you will not take a new account that says, yeah, just show up at the end of the year and you'll go over the stuff. It's like, if that designer doesn't commit to being involved and engaged partner with you, a knowledgeable partner with you in their money, you're not interested in working with them, right?
Yeah, and the hard part is when I really like someone and I have to let them go because they're too busy to meet with me in an entire year. They won't do it, and I realize we're getting to the end of our commitment and they haven't kept their side of the bargain. And I say, well, when surprises come up, you're going to blame me, but we really need to communicate. It's so important.
Right. So, you guys now are hearing what I heard the first time I met him. It matters to you, Peter. It matters to you.
Yeah.
That's the cool part, that it matters, because the truth is, yes, how many CPAs get, the Riot Act read to them at the end of the year because, quote unquote, the client didn't know what was going on, but the client wasn't actively asking any more questions than that disengaged CPA was offering, right? But the truth of the matter is that ultimately, it doesn't matter. We're grown-ups. And if in our business we don't take an active part, the CPA doesn't have any liability there. But you don't care about that. You want to be working with people who care.
Right. And let's put it back on the CPAs too. Let's be honest.
No, I know. Like, they're
My
disengaged,
profession
right?
is kind of an embarrassment. I mean, most of them are, hermits in windowless offices that struggle to speak with people. And so if you don't want to talk about it, it's like, well, I did my job. Your tax return's done. You owe a lot of money because you made a lot of money. You should be happy. Leave me alone.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. They're disengaged and they're fine with it, right? But, the truth of the matter is it is, even if we are working with a disengaged CPA, it's our responsibility to demand the engagement. And
Sure.
but you are proactive, and you are saying, if you want that once a year, bullcrap evaluation and blah, 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 then go somewhere else, because I want to help you grow your business and make good choices.
Absolutely.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so now you get these requests to teach this class. So get me to you. I know that you have 2 classes. The first class is really, from what I understand, I'm going to pick it apart again with you, but from what I understand, it's appropriate whether you are just starting your business or you might possibly be in business 5, 10, 15, 20 years, depending on what your experience has been like in your own relationship with your own money. So tell us about that class.
Okay, so this class is perfect for any interior designer who is just at the point where they want to learn more about the financial statements that they should be reviewing. So even if you know some and you look at some, and maybe your bookkeeper or accountant or tax preparer will send you stuff, and you're, deep down inside in your gut, you're like, I don't really know how to read that. I'm not really sure. No one really explained to me what any of this is. This class is perfect because I go through every single one, and then I go through the details of different reports that are in every accounting software. And then I talk about the relationship that each one has. And what's nice, because I know that this is an extremely boring topic, I try to break them down into different modules, and then we break them down even further into little videos. So I always say to people, I hope you take your time listening, because I wouldn't want to, even as an accountant, I wouldn't want to sit and listen to myself talk about this straight, right? So,
well, but the thing about it is what I love about this is that I have a vision of there is a need for this. Like I said, unless there have been designers that I have interviewed over the years that come from some sort of finance background. So whether they came from, a Wall Street firm, or they come from accounting, or whatever the thing is, but I've met them and I've interviewed them. And so maybe they sit down with a bookkeeper or their accountant and have, maybe they have 100% understanding of it. Maybe they have 3/4% understanding of it. But the rest of us, I know, can sort of be like, okay, that means that, okay. And you ask it once and you ask it twice. And then there's a third time where you're just like, I'm really sorry, I'm not getting it yet. Right. And I know in person live, you will explain it as many times as necessary. But there's also this part of us that really would like to just, can I just take this aside and like just study it, and really sort of digest it. I have a vision of going through this course and one of two things happening, either emerging from it, from taking my time and really digesting it and saying, I get it, or emerging from it and having a list of questions. But at least I know what I don't know now. And if I have to go to the VIN man and say, just to tell me this, or if I have to email you, just tell me this, or I have to ask my own accountant if I'm not working with you, just tell me what that means. But it's sort of the not even knowing what to ask because I don't know what I don't know, that this course answers that dilemma, right?
Right. And when we break it down by each section of each financial and being able to do it in pieces, it allows you, while you're listening, to open up your software and see what your statements actually look like. And I try to add that too, like, hey, because guess what? I set my own design firm up in QuickBooks, and guess what? It looks awesome. Everything that I did, all the numbers look great. And I even say
You're
that
very
in the
profitable.
video. I am super profitable. But I also say, hey, I admit I made this up. I look great. If you're looking at things and maybe it doesn't look like this, here's a couple of reasons why. And now this could be it, this could be it, this could be it. And then you're like, oh, maybe option 2. Yes, I know that's been going on. And here's what you need to look at in more detail to try to fix what the problem is.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because
that's
sometimes,
so
I said sometimes it could be a coding error, and your bookkeeper could think it's something else. And this, I teach you how to look at comparative reports so that you can find variances quickly and say, you know what, I get it. This should have gone to office supplies and it went to travel, and it looks like I went on a bunch of trips.
Right.
But a simple fix, and now the numbers look more comparable with the way they're supposed to.
Well, and that is such a great example, because I'm thinking of a conversation that I had. I don't recall at which event that I was at one of the markets, but one of the designers saying to me that she was working with the bookkeeper, and she was allowing the bookkeeper to be basically the oversight person for the process and checking in and having a meeting every month or two, but not really fully understanding the whole process either. So sort of giving too much trust there. But at one point, when something went dramatically wrong, she said, okay, we got to sit down. And basically I was like, you cannot take no for an answer. This woman is being paid by you. We don't care anymore that she says it doesn't matter. We don't care anymore that she said, hey, I've got this. I said, you're going to tell her that she comes in normally on Friday? Okay, you're going to tell her this Friday, the entire time is going to be talking about your books with you in the space. Like, you've got to understand. And what happened was she reported back to me that it was just what you said. That wasn't a case of somebody being negligent. It wasn't, maybe negligent. It wasn't somebody somebody's being malicious. But it turned out that she was, like you said, tagging and attributing a certain type of expense consistently in the wrong category. And that was because the bookkeeper also wasn't from the industry, and so therefore didn't have a grasp, because the design industry is not straightforward, is it, Peter?
Absolutely not. Nope. And I get that all the time of it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It all ends up, on the tax return, it all ends up in the same. Untrue, completely untrue. And this is good for a business owner to learn those things and be able to connect, but it's also good for bookkeepers to kind of get more of a detailed explanation of how this industry is so unique.
Right. Well, and that's what I love about your course. And I said that to you a moment ago off air. I love that if I'm a sole owner, I'm a solo firm, maybe 1 or 2 employees, whatever that looks like, and I want to feel more in charge. I want to feel more confident. I want to have a conversation, whether it's my bookkeeper or my CPA, and know exactly what the heck I'm talking about, then this is awesome for me. But what I mentioned to you is, and I believe it to be 100% true, is I might be a principal of a firm of 6, 8, or 10, and maybe I've paid my dues. I know exactly how to run my books, but I'm not the one doing them on a daily basis anymore. And what if I have a turnover in my bookkeeper? And I do hire a bookkeeper that's from outside the industry. So maybe I'm sitting here, I'm knowledgeable, but this isn't my role anymore. I oversee and I meet, but it's not my role anymore. And I get a good referral. I get somebody that I know is competent, but that doesn't know the industry. Do I got to sit there as the principal and take time out of my day every single week in order to teach this bookkeeper my industry? No, I can buy her or him Peter's course and have them sit down and take it. And then we talk at the end of the week and review. And because I'm in a place of knowledge, I'll know if this bookkeeper picked up to speed. But isn't that an excellent use of your course as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you want everyone on your team to be on the same page.
Yeah, exactly. So this is just so valuable. I just can't even stand it. And so now there is a second course that's available as well. And tell us about that one.
Okay, so if you are someone who uses like a MyDoma or another software that integrates into QuickBooks Online, and maybe you're already using it, but you haven't started the QuickBooks Online section, this class is perfect for making sure that QuickBooks Online is set up to show you the accounting reports in a way that's great for the industry. So QuickBooks Online is a great accounting software, but when you set up an account, it's kind of, they use just like generic accounts. It's like it's if you never did anything with it, you'd be like, okay, well, it says sales, great, but what does that mean? Like, what am I selling? What am I doing? Luckily, they make it so that it's easy to customize new accounts into the software. So I give you a list of chart of accounts that are perfect, the ultimate list for the interior design business, and then you can download it and check it with yours and all that stuff. But then I also have videos where I step by step add it to a QuickBooks Online account, so you can see exactly how to add it, what account types you need to select it at, so that when the bookkeeper is putting transactions in, it's going to the right account and the account that you need it to for the interior design industry.
It's amazing. And I'm so glad that so many of the designers asked you to do this, because you don't understand. I think it is. I know that you know how valuable it is, but because it's second nature to you, I don't know if you know the depth of how valuable what you have created is for all of us, honestly, because there's nothing more frustrating than truly wanting to have ownership of what you are doing every day in your life, and just feeling like, sweet Jesus, are you kidding me? Like I got to stay on top of all of the, the sustainable living principles. I got to stay on top of aging in place principles. I got to stay on top of design trends. And I got to learn how to do QuickBooks too. It's just not fair.
I know.
But you make it so that it's doable, and that's what's so incredible about it. And I have to say, I think the pricing is so, don't even think, just buy. It's my feeling. You know how I am, you guys. But so what are we looking at? Tell us the pricing of the two different courses again.
Okay, so the main class that's great for everyone, you can get that class for $497. And then if the second class is something that fits your software and that's something that you need to do, you can buy that second class for $199 by itself.
Yeah, I love it. What's so funny is because that's, they're both no-brainers. There's no question. You spend $700 and my world is changed, and I wake up and I'm like, I am in control of my money. I understand my money to the point that I can have an intelligent conversation with my people that are my partners in my money, my bookkeeper and my CPA. That's priceless. This is like a MasterCard commercial. I'm sorry, it's priceless. you know me. When I believe in something, but this is like, I don't know that I've ever believed in anything in 3.5 years as much as I believe in this.
Well, what's going to be priceless is if you buy my class and you learn all this stuff, and now you're finally sitting with your accountant and you start asking like these in-depth, really good questions and seeing their face and being like, wait, now I'm going to have to do some work here, and I'm actually going to have to come up with answers, and you're not just going to blow me off.
Oh, my goodness.
Interesting.
Right,
okay.
Right. So are there things that come to mind? That's a great thought there, Peter. Are there things that come to mind that you would say to designers listening that maybe they don't have a fantastic relationship with their CPA, and they have sort of just been marginalized and allowed themselves to be marginalized by a CPA that's not interested in collaborating? Are there some opening questions that you can think of that we should at the very least be addressing?
Well, you're going to have to see. I would say a good question, especially if you are growing, like if it's the middle of the year and you've had a great year, if your accountant, your tax preparer has access to your books, asking this question of, so my business is changing. Do you think that I'm still in the right business entity tax-wise, or is there another option that can save me taxes?
Okay. And we don't wait until January, February, March of the next year.
Oh no, because then it's too late.
It's too. So so that's interesting. So it's the sort of thing we're running and gunning. Maybe I'm a sole proprietor, and we're running and gunning, and just put your head up and say, is it just people that are sole proprietors that might need to change, or is it possible that an LLC should go to an S corp or vice versa? Like, what are we thinking there?
So if you're a single member LLC or you're a sole proprietor, both could be switched to an S corp for tax purposes. And if you're an LLC, you're still an LLC. You're just telling the IRS that you want to be taxed as an S corp.
Okay.
There is ways. Now, if you're already an S corp and you're also growing and everything like that, it's also important that as you grow as an S corp and maybe bring on a bigger team, that adds more tax deductions and that kind of stuff that you can take advantage of. And I always say that you can take a lot more advantage of things during the year than you can after the year is over.
Oh, see, that's a great point. We're so busy in the middle of the year, not really thinking about the strategies that we just get smacked with whatever happens and we get our returns done in February or March. But you're saying this is the time, halfway through, give some thought. Now, is there a converse of that, Peter, that would be worthwhile? What if I projected to do, say, 500,000 in gross revenue for 2019, and I'm just past the halfway point, and I'm only at, say, 190 or 200K? I'm underperforming. And are there things there, or that's just like, sorry, go hard, work harder?
No. So I will be honest with you. Every single tax software that's out there assumes, if you don't do anything, they just assume that the next year is going to look exactly the same way. So if you make that kind of money and you're used to making estimated tax payments, and you have a tax preparer who you bring your tax stuff and they do it, and then you don't talk to them to the following year, I've seen the reverse. So I as an accountant who didn't really pay attention, I gave my client 4 quarterly tax payments to make, assuming you're going to make 500,000 in revenue again. And you were good. You were great. You listened to me and you made those payments, and it was really hard, and you didn't take a paycheck a couple of times, and you didn't go on a vacation, but you didn't want that tax surprise. So you just kept going along. And now it's time to file your tax return. And, good news, you're getting a refund of $18,000.
You could have used
so
that
I just
money.
let the government use $18,000 when I've seen this before with new clients where which it was like, and I look and I compare and I'm like, what happened in 2018 or whatever? I was on maternity leave for 5 months out of the year.
My goodness, something that's so blatantly obvious, no less.
Now you got a huge refund, and the next year, you're expecting to go back to where you were 2 years ago. So you need to make more payments, but they refunded you all that money. And now you're not, they didn't tell you that you need to be making big payments because your business is going to back to where it was going to be. That's like, and you know what? I've seen that 3 or 4 times in the last 3 months alone.
Whoa.
Where it's like, so a majority of CPAs at my profession really are just doing a tax return. They're making the money, and then in the summer they're sitting on the beach, and it's like, and then when the winter time comes, people are gonna need their tax returns done. I'm still gonna make money, and it's gonna be winter, so who cares? I can do my work. And I was like, you know what? There's got to be more to life than that.
Right. We won't share this with the CPA Association or something.
They already hate me anyway.
They'll blackball you. Can you have your card back, please, Peter Lang? Next, out of the lane. He's out.
There's got to be a couple of rebels out there,
right? Right. I know. Well, and so what's interesting is that it's a 2-year negative cycle is what you're saying, because the first year it's 3 years. So 1 year we do great. We make 500,000 gross revenue. The next year we have a baby, so we go to 220,000. But the third year we go back to 500,000, but the CPA is always a year behind in the adjustment.
Right.
So you're saying the first year we overpaid. The next year he has us underpaying, and then we come at the end of the year and he doesn't think to say.
Well, that's the worst, is when you get a huge refund and you screwed up, but now you say, hey, wait, what kind of year are you expecting? Wow. You're going to have a big year again? You know what? I'm not going to give you this whole refund back. We're going to get credit for first quarter or second quarter, wherever we're at to catch up. But no, we just refund the whole thing. And then at the end of the year, it's like, remember that refund we gave you, that big refund that you spent because you got it all back? Yeah, you haven't made any payments, and now your business is way ahead, and you got to make big payments to catch up.
Crazy. But to your point is, it takes knowing your client, not just knowing them on paper. Because,
absolutely.
Right? So because if somebody is having a baby, so the 1 year they're out with a baby, the next year they might look at one set of parents might look at you and say, Mom isn't going to work for 6 months. Another might say, I'm back at work in a month. You know what I mean? But you're talking about having conscious decisions regarding your finances based on the real life things that are happening in your family.
Absolutely.
Right.
And in that situation, if I'm comparing reports to, instead of comparing with last year when I know what happened, I know this year, we'll go back to 17, let's say, because it's 2019 right now. We'll go back to 17 and we'll compare 17 with 19 on how we're doing to see, okay, when
Right.
you were going pedal to the metal and you want to be pedal to the metal this year, how are we doing with that? Because if we look at last year,
It's not
it,
a good.
it's
We can't
worthless.
compare, right? It's yeah. And the thing is, look, you use the example of having a baby. You could have a parent that's
Oh,
sick.
sure.
It could be a million things. It's the point is that we're so busy doing what we're doing, and if we don't have this experience and this knowledge to understand that the life things that might be affecting the gross revenue of our business are things that we should be in touch with our CPA to say something about. And that's what you teach people, is to speak up. And that's why, by the way, you insist that they have at the minimum, the quarterly meetings. Do you do monthly? Is that your preference, monthly, or quarterly is it?
No, quarterly
Yes.
usually is enough because, everyone's busy. I do have a couple that like to meet monthly, but quarterly is usually
Is sufficient.
good.
Because you're
Yeah,
also making the assumption that there's a bookkeeper that is there every week on
right.
top of things, and they're having at least weekly or biweekly meetings with the bookkeeper, right?
And we schedule quarterly calls to talk in person through a video call, but that doesn't mean we're not talking more like through email. We're talking, anytime a question comes up. I hope that if any of my clients are listening, they feel comfortable enough to email me and let me know. And another thing that I want to say, because sales tax is becoming such a complex issue, is a good question or a good thing to communicate with your tax preparer or whoever does your sales tax, whether it's your bookkeeper or anyone like that. If you decide to accept a project in a different state, before you do anything, just communicate with whoever does your sales tax and say, I'm thinking of taking this project on in this state. Could you let me know whether or not I have Nexus? And am I going to be responsible to have to charge sales tax to my customer in that jurisdiction? And then we have to file in that jurisdiction.
So, is it possible that you have to file in both states? So you're saying that you have to be aware. Like, could two states both double dip? Like, each get sales tax on a project, or you have to know which state is going to take the sales tax?
It's all based on the state's rules. But if you, like, let's say you're marking up product and you're having that product shipped directly to that state and the work's being done, you potentially, and I use that word potentially, could have a nexus issue where you'd have to collect sales tax in that state. You wouldn't have to double dip both states. Most of the time it's one or the other with
I
sales tax.
see.
And every state has their own rules with this
And
because
the states fight it out amongst themselves. Like somebody, you know what I mean? So you're saying if Florida has the rule that it has to be collected here, but the designer is based in New Jersey because the
but if
project's in Florida, that takes the precedence.
right, and you want to make sure that someone is doing research on Florida to make sure that because it's happening in Florida, if we need to collect sales tax because of that and we need to pay Florida, that's being done.
Right. Because
This is the hottest topic in 2019. Sales tax is just changing on a weekly basis for every
oh,
jurisdiction.
oh. Well, I guess with all the online shopping and everything else, it's not it's a whole new, it's cowboy land,
Yep.
right? I mean,
It
it's
all
like,
started with Wayfair versus South Dakota, and then everybody got in on the act.
oh, okay. And so the thing is, we could unknowingly charge in this example, our New Jersey tax and not think anything of it, and then get this surprise because somehow the IRS figured out that we did a big project in Florida, and it's like, where's all that money? And nobody cares that you gave it to New Jersey legally because that you were
Right.
just
Nobody cares.
no.
The state's gonna, if they potentially could find out, the state would say, you had Nexus in here and we are going to charge you the sales tax on this stuff. If you ever had a sales tax audit, the state would come in and charge that. And if you said, well, I can't go back and charge my client, they're still going to expect that money from you.
Right, and New Jersey's not going to say, "Oh, we'll give it back."
Oh, no. Yeah, right. Oh, sure. Yeah. All the
Oh.
states get along well. They just, sure. No, here's our money.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh my goodness. All right, so I have to ask this thing. So what does the word nexus mean in this conversation?
Okay, so nexus basically, it can mean different things, but do you have a presence in that state?
Okay.
And presence can be defined in different ways as well. But it's basically like, do you have employees? Do you have employees in that state? Do you have a shop or a location or an office in that state? Do you ship goods? Do you, in some states, do you do service in that state? So those are the kind of things that determine presence. If you have presence in the state or determine nexus in the state, those are the kind of things that you need to make sure someone's doing research on.
And what you're saying is that the states, it's up to them to determine what nexus means for their criteria. And so one state might say, hey, you need to have a storefront here or an office or a studio here, and that's a requirement to say that this is nexus. But another state might say, well, if you flew here every single week for 6 months and you did business and you did $200,000 of, trade good business here, that's what we call nexus here.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. One state might say it's got to be over 100,000 and it's got to be over 200 transactions, and then another state might say we don't care unless it's over 500,000. Now you have nexus in our state.
Okay. And just to go down that road a little further, if somebody listening is like, I shipped a sofa to Florida, that's not going to come on a radar. Like $1,000 transaction is not. We're talking about big projects.
It's usually over 50,000. Most of the time you'll see, I've seen some states where they say like 50,000, but most you're looking at a threshold of 100 or 200,000 in dollar amount.
Okay, but we have many, many designers listening that are doing projects in other states at that level project. I know it. I talked to them.
Yep,
right?
Absolutely.
And you have clients that I'm sure are in the same boat.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yes.
And now we're filing, sales tax in all sorts of different states because of it. But and the rules are changing all the time, so it's definitely something that you want to make sure that someone on your team is doing the research to make sure you're okay.
Right. And by your team, you mean your CPA.
CPA, bookkeeper, anybody like that who you can rely on to make sure that they do that. Yep.
Exactly. And to go back to the beginning with that first course that you're offering is to be able to actually have that conversation with confidence with that person. Once they start to go down the road and explain to you certain things, you don't want your eyes glazing over and going, yeah, I really don't know what you're talking about now.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I just love it. I mean, do these courses have a name? I never even asked you that.
Okay, so my company that came up with a logo, they started the hashtag Free the Designer thing, which was pretty cool. So every class is the hashtag Free the Designer from financial statements, and the other one is called Free the Designer from Chart of Accounts. And then if I really get getting gear here by Halloween, Thanksgiving, I want to do Free the Designer from tax deductions. That's the next one that I want to do. So I clearly don't want weekends. I'll just keep taping classes, but I actually am having fun doing it. So
it's
if
a lot of work.
If you talk to yourself, then someone's got to be listening.
Yeah, right. Well, it's a lot of work that you're putting into doing all of these lessons and recording them. And I'm sure, my brain goes down the process of having to probably watch it back and make sure that you say the right word. I have to tell you, right? Because these words matter now. When I listen to the podcast in editing after I've had a conversation with a guest, it just happened just this past week. And I forget what the word was that I said that was different. I don't remember what it was. And I was like, that's not the right word there. And I don't mean like grammatically. It was like if I were to say Power Talk Friday and Power Talk Thursday, like say that, right? Yep. And I was like, oh, well, we have the Power Talk Friday tour on Friday, and then we have the Power Talk Friday tour, and I said Thursday, but it wasn't that, right? But the point was, it wasn't critical. Nobody was like going to lose money over it. I just was like, oh, you said the wrong word there, LuAnn, but I guess everybody will figure out that you just missed, you know how you do that. So you take all the time to video.
I've woken up at 3:00 in the morning a couple of times and was like, you know what, that video I did, that's not good enough. Email myself to do it again tomorrow. I, so
Yeah.
so if you do buy my class and you watch it, you could be watching and I could have a white shirt, and then all of a sudden you could get to another module and now I have a blue shirt, and that's because I woke up a week later and said that wasn't good enough. I can't find that white shirt, so I'm just gonna give up and wear the blue shirt.
That's it. That's it. But that's a big deal. Because if you say a wrong term and I'm sitting there with my ears and eyes peeled, taking you at verbatim, you know me, I'm going to argue it to somebody else too, probably the VIN man. I'm like, absolutely not. Peter Lang said it's this. And he's like, going to say to me, Lou, that's not what the balance sheet does. I'm like, he says it does, Vin. So that's a whole other layer of that has gone into this course, the thought and the care. And I just think it's amazing. I think it's an insane resource for all of us and so lucky of us to have it. So I thank you for doing it. And you're releasing it in the middle of September, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So September 15th, we'll have it out and it'll be ready to go. And now I feel motivated. I'm going to get on the tax class. And so if you sign up, you'll get on an email list, and any new classes that I come up with, you'll find out about that. And if that interests you, hopefully you take advantage of those too.
That's awesome. So we go to thedesignercpa.com/classes for designers.
Correct. Yep.
Right. Okay. thedesignercpa.com/classes for designers. All right. Now, before you go, I am so psyched for High Point. You haven't had a chance to do a Power Talk Friday tour with me yet.
No, and I've never been to High Point. So everyone said I need to fast and get ready to eat a lot. And so I'm really excited to come down.
Wait till you see it. It's like nothing you've ever experienced before. Honestly, Peter, it is like nothing you've ever experienced. And what I have to say to you is, you will be like me. It's a whirlwind. You just are looking at all the different panels to go to and all the people that you know that you want to check in and hear what they have to say. And then the aspirational panels, people that you haven't met and you want to see what they have to say and hear what they have to say. And I every single market, at least a half a dozen times during the day, I look at the designers that I'm hanging out with for the entire market, and I'm thinking, how are you getting any work done in between this? Like, the designers then have to actually go to showroom appointments and have to sit in furniture and they have to source product. And I feel like there should be another week for the work.
Yep.
But anyway, but you have not done a Power Talk Friday tour with me yet. Of course, the Power Talk Friday tours are one-day coaching events where I gather 3 to 4 of my co-authors. That is the privilege of being in the book, is that you get to be in a Power Talk Friday tour event. And I have been doing them for about 1 year and 3 months now, and this is finally your first one, and it's also Nicole Heimer's first one and Kay Whitaker's first one, and my cousin Eileen Hahn will be back for this one. So awesome. This is a particular killer group of people. And of course, you know they all are. Let's be serious. Yep. So we just had Las Vegas, and we had Eileen, we had Nancy Ganskalfer, we had Stacey McKenna from My Doma Studio. And then, of course, we always have myself and Vin there too. And what happens is it's just like LuAnn Live. And I tweak this with feedback from the Power Talk Friday tours. Originally, the first 2 tours, I would have each of my co-authors go up and do a 45-minute presentation on their superpower, on what it is that you do. And we might have 10 or 15 minutes of questions, however long. I don't care how long questions go, because that's the whole point of it. So whatever it takes, we do the questions. And we would do the 3 or 4 presentations in the morning, and then the magic is in the round tables with only 2 or 3 people and 1 coach in the afternoon. But feedback that I got was that the designers wanted me, I had feedback from a tour that they said, having done it now, the only thing I would ask that you woulda, shoulda, coulda done was that you were there for the conversation with the expert, just like you are on the podcast. And actually the way it was expressed to me was, yes, I really loved it. I learned so much and la, la, la. And the one said to me, but I just feel like I didn't have enough of you. And I looked at her and I went, we were together from 8 o'clock in the morning until 1 o'clock in the morning, like literally, except for an hour and a half when I ran back to my room and showered and changed. I mean, that's literally what it, so get ready, like sleep well, okay? Because you know me, I go all straight out, pedal to the metal, right?
And, I learned that.
Yes, yep. Right. And I literally said, wait, we were together. I can't even do how many hours that is, but that's a lot of hours. And that's when they said, there was three young designers sitting there, and they said, no, we appreciate that. We get that you're so true. You were there all day, and we got a lot of one-on-one time with you and yada, yada. But they specifically pointed out that, like the podcast, sometimes I will ask a guest something based on my body of knowledge that the designer might not even know enough to ask, was exactly the way it was presented to me. And they said, I feel like we would have gotten more out of the presentations if you were facilitating the conversation the way you do on the podcast. And so we've switched it. And so now, again, I'm there talking all day from 8 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock in the morning again. But you know me, I love it. And so that's what we do. So, but what's interesting is, like, we just had it in Las Vegas in July 2019, and I think we had 7 designers at that event. And so these are intentionally capped at small numbers. And so it is a conversation between me and my expert, but it easily opens up into a group discussion. So one designer will say something, the expert might answer, I may add something, but then one of your colleagues might say, well, I don't understand that either, and what about that? Or I address it this way, what do you think of that? And so it's a very... It's funny. It's LuAnn Live was like that with 200 people. It's like that with 15 people. It's crazy. And it's so... it's just game changing. It really is. And so I'm so excited for this particular combination. I'm so excited for you to be there with us, because I know that you also thrive like I do in really helping a designer address their personal business and how they can leave with something that will just make one thing easier to understand, one thing better to do, one strategy that's going to just change the direction of a business, right, Peter?
Yep, and it's going to be perfect timing, because you're going to be able to leave in October and have, for me, for my topic, you're going to have actionable items to get yourself, as whether it's tax or accounting, 2 or 3 different things that you can come home and implement in your business before the end of the year. So it's great.
I love that. And how about this? Even if it's just that you get a chance to sit with Peter and really say, I know we've had people that have brought their spreadsheets and their balance sheets and looked at them with Vinny and Michelle Williams when they've been there. One year we had one of the designers that said, I'm considering purchasing a studio. I have all my numbers here and my books, can I afford it? Wow. And between Vinny and Michelle, they sat with her for 2 hours and worked it all out in a plan and said, do this, do that, don't do this, yes, that, they didn't ask me that. I don't know why. So I love that, Peter, that people are going to be able to come away with things that they need to think about and look at. And even if it's they go back to their own accountant with like, look, buddy, we need to lock this down.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. All righty. Well, I am just so excited, and I can't wait to see you in High Point. And I just want to say thank you to My Doma Studio for sponsoring this podcast, and especially with the addition of the QuickBooks integration with My Doma Studio this past spring, 2019. It is really the one place for you to do everything that you need to do in your interior design firm, from running the project management, having conversations with your clients, having conversations with your vendors, and now running your financials there as well. And if you want to get your trial for My Doma Studio, go to mydomastudio.com. a well-designed business. And you remember what Corey Klassen said at LuAnn Live about My Doma Studio, Peter? Do you remember what he said? He said, if it doesn't happen in My Doma Studio, it didn't happen.
There you go. And I do like that. I was envious of that, even as an accountant, when everyone was talking about My Doma and they were saying, like, my architect can go in, my general contractor can go in, my client can go in, and everyone can see everything at the same time. And I thought, man, I wish I had something like that in the accounting industry where everyone could do that and say, well, I don't know about anything because it didn't happen, and whatever would be good for an accounting industry, but nobody's figured that out yet. So.
I know. Well, believe me, you know how many times I've said to Sarah, can you develop a platform like this for window treatments? And how about one for podcasting while you're at it?
There you go.
And she just looks at me. She's like, Lou, let me have a minute, okay? Oh, my goodness. Well, Peter, I'm afraid I think I did most of the talking because I'm so excited about the things that you do. And, of course, you know, you're just a gem for us. And I just appreciate you so much. And I thank you so much for being part of my book and sharing all of your knowledge in the book and a part of the event and this upcoming event. And I'm so excited to hear the feedback for your courses at the designercpa.com/classes for designers. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at LuAnnNigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.